Final Fantasy VII was a groundbreaking role-playing game. It brought the Final Fantasy series into 3D, and the game is often referred to as the greatest role-playing game to ever walk the earth. Of course, that statement is highly debatable, but in any case, it is a great game. During the game's development, it went through various changes, like many games do. The changes vary from some character designs to even it appearing on a different console. So today on Gaming Mysteries, I'll be talking about the beta and various planning stages of Final Fantasy VII. Now, Final Fantasy VII entered its planning stages in 1994 after the release of Final Fantasy VI. It was at this time that the game was planned to be another 2D-style Final Fantasy game for the Super Famicom. Now, before I go any further, I want to say that there's a bit of a theme with Square starting to develop a fourth Final Fantasy game for a console and then moving it to a newer one, but I'll talk about that in a different episode. In any case, this Final Fantasy VII was supposed to take place in New York City in the year 1999, and the script was drastically different from the finished product. It was said that Sakaguchi wanted to do a detective-style story, and the first part of the story involved a character named, and I quote, Hot-Blooded Detective Joe, who was in pursuit of the main characters. Then the main characters blew up Midgar, which was already developed for the story. I can't say I don't mind that the story is way different because Hot-Blooded Detective Joe sounds kinda lame. While on the topic of the Super Famicom version of the game, it was rumored that the game would use Donkey Kong-style CGI graphics. Now, the concepts that weren't used in this Super Famicom version of Final Fantasy VII were eventually used in games like Parasite Eve and Final Fantasy VIII, respectively. Now, Squaresoft was under the assumption that unless they moved the series into 3D, it would be left behind and forgotten. It was around this time that Squaresoft released a tech demo that goes by many names. I like to call it Final Fantasy 64. This technical demonstration gave Square an idea of what they could do with 3D graphics, and it's often believed to have been the seed that spawned the actual Final Fantasy VII. Now, there's a lot of controversy surrounding Final Fantasy 64, or whatever you may call it, so much so that it gets its own gaming mysteries later on. I will say that it was thought at one point to be Final Fantasy VII, and it was even thought that it was going to be coming out on Nintendo's Ultra 64 in 1996. These were just rumors and assumptions, though. Speaking of a Final Fantasy VII on the N64, though, it's been said that the game was to appear on the N64, but couldn't due to limited cartridge space, so Square decided to instead release the game on Sony's PlayStation. I've read articles saying that this is false and not true, and that the game was never supposed to appear on the N64. But honestly, it's hard to say at this point, especially with so many conflicting reports, and considering the fact that I didn't work at Squaresoft back then. I was too busy being 5, so I'll let you guys think what you want on that one. Now, back to the game at hand. Squaresoft picked up production of the game once again in late 1995 after seeing what they could do with that tech demo. Production required the efforts of about 120 artists and programmers using Power Animator and Soft Image 3D software, with a budget of more than $30 million. The game was eventually released in 1997 and given crazy amounts of critical praise. And now that we have all the backstory out of the way, we can talk about the actual beta version of the game. Now, in an early build of the game, which you can see in this trailer footage I'm showing, you'll notice some differences between it and the final product. At the top of the screen, you'll see pictures, and what I've read are names next to them. I'm guessing they're the characters' names. I'm not sure what purpose this would have had, but it's kinda cool, in my opinion anyways. Barrett is a bit taller than he should be, and Red 13 is shown, although at this point he wasn't supposed to be a playable character, and it was said that he was going to be a boss. One really interesting thing that I read was that early in the game, Aeris was originally supposed to be the only girl in the story, but later on they added Tifa, although during development they had a hard time fitting them both in the story. Apparently as a joke, Naruma said, "Let's just kill off Aeris," and they decided that was a good idea. Fun fact, huh? But there you have it, the beta and development that was Final Fantasy VII. Personally, I'm happy with the finished product. I loved the game back in the day, and I'm sure a lot of you did as well. And none of the changes that were made to it really bother me, because it's still a fantastic package. Although, they shouldn't have killed Aeris. That's kinda messed up. This has been Gaming Mysteries, thanks for watching.